Hi, I'm Kyle, and on this episode of the MWA podcast, Sean and I are asking Luke Barnett the 5 questions. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out Luke's interview on episode 553. So, welcome back to the show, Luke.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. Sean, nice to be with you.
Yeah, I know. A week later, hey, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So with that, before we get into the 5 questions, let's dip our toes into the woodworking news. So first off, Jet has a new joiner out that they're calling the Black Series jointer.
Wow.
And
you got to say it all together because it's the Jet Black Series.
Jet Black Series. Yeah, I know.
So it sounds good when it's all squeezed together.
Yeah, but basically what they're doing is Powermatic, I think a year or two ago, introduced this coating on all their machinery that has low friction and doesn't rust and all this kind of stuff. I think they call it their Armor Glide. Well, basically, Powermatic and Jet are owned by the same parent company, so basically they're giving that same type of coating to the Jet power tools now. And the first one that they've introduced is this 8-inch helical head jointer. So. Yeah. And it's $2,500. So
I will say the Jet was typically the white to the Powermatic yellow, right?
Exactly.
The predominant color. My dad has a 6-inch Jet joiner I'm familiar with. Putting the black on this, now the black coating and then the black accents below, it looks really good.
It's a sharp looking machine.
It's a sharp looking tool.
Yeah.
And actually in the article you shared, they're offering this in a series of their tools: 8-inch joiner, 14-inch handsaw, edge sander, and 20-inch helical head planer.
Yeah.
So they're kind of spreading it through. This is like a typical thing. Auto manufacturers do it too. Like the Premier gets the upgrade, and then a year later, the less than Premier gets that same upgrade.
Yeah.
So
it's
like Powermatic,
Cadillac options going down to the
Chevys. Yeah,
down to the
exactly,
Chevys.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So like that kind of thing's happening. Good look if you're in the market. I don't know what the competitors 8-inch joiners go for. How big of a price jump is $2,500 for an 8-inch kind of like shop jointer? This isn't something.
Yeah, I think if you want a decent helical head 8-inch, you're talking at least $2,000. So
yeah, so I mean you're right there. You're a percentage, but you're right there.
Yeah. I say that's in today's prices. I got my 12-inch for and it's also a planer too, but I got my Jet 12-inch joiner planer back in the day, and it was like $2,000.
Yeah.
But
I mean, hey,
now it's $5,000. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But claims of the coating of being less friction and protection. There's a benefit there as opposed to bare steel, which was more typical for these tools.
Oh, if I could retrofit, that's the next thing they need to come out with is, hey, can you send your beds out to get coated? Because I would definitely pull my beds off and
I dare say the beds of your tools are predominant costs of the entire tool besides the motor.
Yeah, but I mean, just to get it coated with something.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
It does. It seems very interesting. A 5-year warranty on the coating that they're claiming on this is pretty promising. I mean, Luke, you've already outfitted your shop, but when one breaks down, maybe.
Yeah,
a little black and white.
Did you have much of a problem with rust and stuff like that?
Absolutely.
Oh, sure.
It's a constant.
We have humidity, Kyle.
Battle.
What are you talking about?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I live in the heart of 90-degree plus weather and 90-degree humidity.
I don't know if it's better
humidity.
or worse, but we get the fluctuation. In winter, we could have negative 10 degrees, low 10% humidity, and then in the summer we can have 90% plus humidity. Like and we run the gamut.
Yeah.
Yeah, the springtime's bad too. Where we are now, that's our wet season, and man, it is just the humidity is so bad. We have a pretty good maintenance schedule, so we're constantly waxing them because if you don't keep up on it, it gets rusty. Then the rust reduces or increases the coefficient of friction, and then stuff drags, and it just decreases performance, causes other problems. So you really have to stay on top of that stuff. So if there in fact is a coating that helps with that, that's a great idea. Can't believe nobody thought of that before, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Steel City tried doing this. You guys
Yeah,
Yeah,
remember
they
I
had
do
the
remember that.
granite. Yeah.
Yeah, they had the granite.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
They had the granite stuff. Yeah. In fact, my drill press is it's an old Delta, but it was made by Steel City. It's a Steel City, it's old Delta design, but yeah, the split case design. But yeah, it's worked great. So
Yeah. Yeah. So
anyway,
you're in the
so,
market. Go get yourself one. Good
exactly.
looking tool.
So, and then next up, Lost Art Press. We highlighted this. There was a free website out there called Layout Computer that was doing some stuff for stick chairs, where you could input the number of sticks and it would do a little design. So you could kind of, play around with it and come up with a interesting design for some stick chairs. Well, now they have added casework to this program. So it's kind of like it's called Layout Computer. It's a free design tool, but not only can you do chairs, now you can do actual casework like bookshelves and stuff like that, and it looks pretty handy and it's free to use. So
I'm playing with it right now. That is really cool.
Yep. I've read people saying, hey, this is a lot quicker and easier than using SketchUp and things like that. You might not get some of the detail, but it's a good place to start, and it may be all you need.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can effectively kind of take your sketch and with a couple, little tabs of changing the outdoor case, the dividers, the doors, drawers, and base, like you can get a good representation of what you're, oh my God. And you can rotate the design.
Yeah. And you can change the thickness of your material and all that kind of. Yeah.
Oh, is that cool? That's really, really cool. And I mean, you can't export this though, right? Like it's a visual tool, not necessarily I'm going to make a plan out of it, right? Like you can kind of take your numbers and put it into and visualize it in a way, right? So that's really neat though. Huh.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you
I'm
can
actually
save
shocked
it.
they didn't do the casework first and didn't do casework seems much simpler than chairs.
Well, yeah, I have a feeling that I think it's Nick that developed this was probably a stick chair maker first, and
Sure.
he said, "Hey, what else can we do with this tool?"
Oh yeah, I mean, honestly, you take something like a Windsor chair of any type, and then you say, "I'm going to take the logic that we built into this and make it a bookshelf." Where all degrees are 90, and thicknesses are only slightly variable. It becomes a little more simple, but that's a really cool tool. I never played with it before, but looking at this now, that's really cool. I love it. I love it. Use it to your best ability. It is free, right?
Yes, it's free.
And honestly, it's the link from Lost Art because the website is terrible to find. Layout.computer/casework is where I'm at, but and there's a bunch of gobbledygook after that. Follow the links and get there.
Yeah.
And take your project to a visual front and see what you're making before you make it.
Yeah. And as always, we will have links in the show notes for all this stuff.
Yeah, so that's really cool.
And then last up, is a great resource, right? The big inspiration to me too, as I'm going through my career. They've always just produced high quality content.
100%.
Yeah. Great resource and a great advocate for the industry to keep it alive.
Yeah. And listeners, between the break, Luke gave us a little visual tour of the shop, and you have all those books. I bet a large percentage of those are probably Lost Art Press books.
I bet.
They make good books, great books.
They sure do.
Exactly. Well, finally, we're going to close out with Fine Woodworking New England. So, if y'all might remember, last year, Fine Woodworking had a little get together at the Connecticut Valley Connecticut Valley School of Woodworking.
Yep.
Bob Van Dyke's school, and they're having that again this year. I think Bob has run a open house every year, and it looks like Fine Woodworking is jumping on the bandwagon. Again, that's going to be May 9th and 10th of this year, and it's going to be from 9 to 5 p.m. It's a 2-day event, and I think it's free to attend. They will have all kinds of I think over 20 dealers. Vantique Tools will have all kinds of people doing presentations, including one of our favorites, David Duyard, is going to be doing a presentation there. So all sorts of fine folks. And if you're in that area, in the Connecticut area, be sure to go up there and check that out.
Oh yeah, I mean, check this out. I mean, the presenters. I mean, no offense to Dave, but they're Mary May, Frank Straza, Daryl Pert. Like there's a lot of names in here. And for just to chat, just to bump shoulders with, that's a cool event. Again, if you're in the area, I don't visit Connecticut all that often, but or never, but that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm going through the list and seeing, okay, who have we not had on the podcast? Okay.
Yeah, there's a handful. There's more than a handful, but
yes. But anyway, it should be a fun time, and like I said, it's going to be again May 9th and 10th, 2025, there at the Connecticut Valley School of Woodworking. So check that out. So let's move on to
our guests allowed to do woodworking news.
Sure.
Yes, what do you got?
Okay. So the Woodworking Network just released their FDMC 300 today, which is the top woodworking companies in North America. And I'll just run through the top 10 real quick. So number 1, Ashley Furniture, annual sales of $6.85 billion per year. Number 2, Miller Knoll, which is Herman Miller and Florence Knoll. They combined. From my home state of Michigan, annual sales of $3.95 billion per year.
Wow.
Next is number 3, Anderson Corporation, out of Bayport, Minnesota, $3.4 billion per year. Number 4, Steelcase, from my home state again, Michigan, Grand Rapids, $3.2 billion per year. Number 5, JELD-WEN, the window company, $3.1 billion per year. Number 6, Masonite, $2.8 billion per year. Number 7, Master Brand Cabinets, Beechwood, Ohio, $2.7 billion per year. Number 8, Hayworth, again from my home state, Holland, Michigan, $2.5 billion per year. Number 9, Woodgrain from Fruitland, Idaho. Number 10, Cabinet Works Groups from Ann Arbor, Michigan, again from my home state.
So Michigan's the place you want to be in the woodworking industry.
Michigan has a deep history in woodworking. So get this. And I keep going off on tangents. I hope you guys don't mind.
No,
our podcast was built on tangents.
So now, Michigan, a lot of people think was built on the auto industry, but in fact, it was built on the lumber industry. Okay. And during the time when the gold rush was happening out on the West Coast, that was also the time when the eastern white pine of Michigan was being harvested. And it's a fact, a little known fact, that there was far more millionaires made from harvesting the eastern white pine of Michigan than all the gold rush on the West Coast in that same period of time.
Wow.
In fact, Henry Ford started building cars in Detroit because of the lumber industry. And
because they were all wood frames.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yep. I was lucky enough to spend a weekend in the Grand Hotel in Mackinac, which is old money, old industry, and all wood.
Yeah,
up
that's
there.
Right.
It's pretty awesome.
Okay, well.
Anyway, that's the guest woodworking news. Thanks.
That's really cool.
Well, the only thing, and I might clip this out depending on your answer, but so can you give me some Eastern White Pine seat blanks?
Yeah, from the UP of Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always looking for a source. Well, I
gotta tell you, it's a different experience up going up to the UP. The UP is like, man, 30 years behind where everybody else.
Yep.
It is a different experience. It is amazing up there. The fact that it is 30 years behind is very refreshing. So very wilderness. But man, getting like I remember the last time I tried to get Eastern White Pine blanks, I'm calling up all these sawmills in the UP, and you'd call this number and say, "Hey, I'm looking for Eastern White Pine." A woman would answer, "Hey, I'm looking for Eastern White Pine," and they'd be like, "Okay, you got to talk to Billy." Then she put the phone on. Billy, someone's calling for some wood. And then you'd sit there and wait, and then Billy would come to the phone and talk to him. This was not one time. This was literally everyone.
Every time.
Yeah.
The UP is an incredible place, and of course I'm biased. I'm from Michigan, but it's probably one of the most beautiful regions in the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At least 6 months out of the year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, with that, let's move on to our patron shout out. So who do we have to thank this week?
Yep. We always like to give a big shout out to our Patreon supporters. Today, we're giving that shout out to S, somewhat anonymous, not my first initials, or is my first initials, but is not me. But SP, thank you for your support. And if you would like to join SP in supporting our podcast, you can go to patreon.com/MWA podcast and help us out there.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, SP. Well, with that, let's move on to the 5 questions. So, Luke, what is your favorite tool? And our limit is 23.
That's easy. That's the draw knife by far. It's my favorite.
There you go. It's simple.
And
there you
bevel
up, bevel down, or does it matter?
It would be a bevel down draw knife, but I am not biased. I like both, but I do like a draw knife where the back is in line with the handles, which would make it a bevel down. I think you have more options to cut very tight coves with it. A nice short bevel, and you can really do that well. But again, I will use like they have these old Barton draw knives. Actually,
exactly.
Yeah, Barton draw knives. Those are a bevel up. Those are sweet.
Unfortunately, I've looked for a good one. I have not found a good one yet.
Oh, Kyle,
I need a Barton.
Send me your
one.
address.
You got him.
Send me your.
You got him in multiples.
Kyle, dude, one time I found on eBay there was a draw knife that was made by a company called Barnett, and I should have just paid the money, but I did the eBay thing where I was like, I'm going to bid against people, and I lost it, and I regret that decision this day. I should have paid $1,000. I mean, I should have just paid for the draw knife. Kyle, if you send me your address, I will send you a Barton.
Okay. Well, we'll have to work out a trade maybe for some jigs.
You can have.
There you go. You get a seat drawing, get jig.
Yeah.
Sure.
A couple draw knives.
Yeah. I'm a little Chris Schwartz about that kind of stuff. He never just accepts gifts. He's always got to give something back in return. I'm kind of the same way.
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough.
All right. So next question: who has influenced you the most?
That's a tough question.
Sure.
So I would probably say Roy Underhill.
Yeah.
So I'm 39 years old, and I remember just being a kid, very young, and on Saturday mornings going on PBS and watching Roy Underhill and being fascinated by it. But a lot of people influenced me. Curtis Buchanan, Peter Galbert, the list goes on and on. Even now to this day, I mean, Jeff Wyatt influences me. Jeff Wyatt is so passionate about chair making that, man, he is an inspiration. And Rex, this is like a second career for Rex. I think Rex was on your podcast, right?
Oh yeah.
And man, he just loves this. And then the instructors that work here, the students that have moved across the country to dedicate their lives to doing that. That takes grit, right? And so it's super inspiring to me to see people take this path that has been considered alternative education. It's amazing. Yeah. So lots of influence. I'm inspired and influenced every day, but my answer would probably have to be Roy Under.
That makes sense. Well, cool. Well, next, what is your white whale? The one thing that you haven't made but always wanted to?
Well, I guess I don't have that, because if I really want something, I usually just do it.
Sure.
Gosh, I don't know.
An
Could be
apple
anything.
orchard.
Yeah, apple orchard.
Well, no. I've made an apple orchard.
A fruit
A
bowl.
white whale is a successful apple
Well,
orchard.
There you go.
One that actually produces apples. Yeah, that's my white whale. Yeah, I don't know. Usually, if there's something I want to make, I just tackle it. So, you know what? I guess it would be the sculptural work of Wharton Esherick, because he has some stuff. And my favorite sculpture by Esherick is called Reverence, which is it's like this very tall statue of a guy with a cane carved out of a log that apparently Wharton's seen at a funeral. And man, it is just it's spectacular. It's haunting, the image. There's an image of it at Philadelphia Museum of Art, and there's a very young girl, probably 5 years old, standing in front of it just looking up at it. And this thing's got to be 12, 15 foot tall. And it is just spectacular. And I guess that kind of stuff would be my white whale, because I don't have the artistic ability to be able to invent that, right?
Mhm.
So that's my white whale.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the artistic angle that you maintain. You know, educator, but still that artistic, look that view kind of in that way. Because
Totally.
Wharton was obviously known for that and is revered for that. In his looking back. That's really that is really cool. We get a lot of answers for that kind of question. But that's a good one, because it's somewhat far-reaching, but not impossible. Because it's been done. But like that. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, he's got a deer sculpture too that's pretty spectacular, where you know what I noticed when I went to the Wharton Esherick Museum is that everything was a Windsor chair. Everything that he's seen, I was like, this is a Windsor chair, right? The arras work, that's kind of the key to a Windsor chair, is working the arrases. And I seen that in all of Wharton's stuff, and super inspiring. But the deer sculpture that he made, just look at the arras work, and it is just spectacular. The simple lines that he creates with the tool to create this form that is a deer out of a log. Amazing.
Do you know what he primarily used for doing the arras work?
A broadaxe.
Broadaxe, just
yeah. But again, he was not, according to the stuff that I've read, he was not committed to anything. He wasn't committed to hand tools. He was committed to accomplishing the task in the most efficient way possible.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
That's pretty cool. All right. So next question. What is your number one tip for fellow woodworkers? I mean, you obviously are involved in the school, so this could be anything.
Lot of tips. Number one tip, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are actually more valuable than successes.
All right. That's awesome. That's absolutely true. Like that's commonly, when you talk about a master in woodworking specifically, maybe, they know how to fix their mistakes. And that's experience. That's just going through the process and repairing what you need as you go along the way.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. That's
well, yeah, and also don't be afraid to remake a piece too.
Yeah.
You might have to do that occasionally, especially after you made a mistake and threw that piece across the shop.
Cathartically, you threw it and said a couple, not great words, and then you just remake it, and as long as you don't make the same mistake, you learned.
Yeah.
No, when you remake the piece, you make it on a different day. You don't immediately remake the piece.
Sure. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people think when they come to a class that they have this expectation that they're going to be like the Mozart of woodworking or something. and it's like, this is a hard skill. I mean, unless we're making like kitchen cabinets, right? Kitchen cabinets are like very machine oriented and just stick this to the machine and cut it to this and blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to chairs and Windsor chairs, it's very sculptural, and it is a artistic practice that you are not going to be good at on your first chair. So come ready to make the mistakes, and just be comfortable with that, because it once you're comfortable with making the mistakes and you're okay with it, that's when you really progress as a woodworker. Okay, you're always going to make mistakes. Even in your mind, you have this fantasy of like you're going to be a master one day. Well, when you're that master, you're still going to make mistakes.
Of course you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember I've taken 4 or 5 chair making classes, and not one time did I leave with a completed chair, because I was there to learn a skill. And now I did finish every chair, which a lot of my instructors went, wow, not many people actually finish them. Anyway, yeah, but I was like, if I have all intents and purposes, I'm bringing home parts to assemble, but I just want to learn the skill of making the parts and getting a good fitting joint, those kind of things. Yeah, that's why I'm there at the class. Yeah,
and be okay with that. Now, I will say, I am kind of hard on the students. I typically do not let them leave unless they have a finished chair, because of exactly what you just said. Most people will go home, take those parts, put them in the garage, and they will never do it. Yeah. But if you go home with a finished chair,
well, I'll put it this way: all my chairs could be put together.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't glue everything up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The excuse that I usually let ride is that, hey, I'm getting on a plane and I can't take a chair on a plane.
Sure.
So in that case, we'll just have the undercarriage, and then we'll stick all the other parts in a box that can be in a carry-on. And that's usually when I let that ride. But if it's somebody that's like driving, I kind of don't let them leave the shop until.
Okay. Well, yeah, I've done that before. I won't burden our listeners with the story once again, but yeah, first time I took a chair class was for a balloon back chair with Pete Galbraith, back the chair I'm sitting in right now.
Oh, can we see it?
Sure.
Oh, the listeners can't see it, but I want to see it. Oh yeah, perfect, beautiful.
Yep. So anyway, I was on a plane, and at the time, I'll probably clip all this out, but at the time I was I did all the contracts for all of the 14 UT institutions. And one of the contracts I did was a rental car contract. So I get into Boston Logan and I go to pick up my rental car, and they go, oh, we've upgraded you to this, Mustang, 5.0 and all this kind of stuff. I go, well, that is fantastic. Until I had to take this chair home, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to fit this in there? So at that point, I talked to Pete and stuff like that, and he goes, well, you're going to glue up the undercarriage, which is what we did, and I got a big box and all this kind of stuff. It took us about 45 minutes to get that box into the car.
Oh, wow.
Because of all the stuff. Had the rear seat all the way back, the seat back laid flat, driver's seat a little bit back, seat back all the way flat, all this stuff. Finally got the box in there, and I'm driving to Boston Logan. I go, well, it can't get much worse than this. And then it started raining. So anyway, I showed up there, and I went, okay, I'm going to go right to, where at that point in time you could check baggage at the curbside. So I went right up to the curbside guy and got the box out of the car after about 5 minutes. And he took a look at it and went, that's too big, but let's go talk to the people inside, see if you can get away with it. So I went and talked to the people inside, and it was Southwest. And I said, oh yeah, we'll let it go, but it's got to go through, security. So I took it over to the TSA guy. He opens up the box and he looks in there and he goes, wow, it's the Antiques Roadshow in here. So anyway, he looks at it, yeah, everything's fine. And then he starts taping it back up, and he goes, you want me to put more tape on it? I'm here for you. As much tape as you want. And it was a whole deal getting that thing home. But yeah, it was pretty fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always doable.
Yeah.
The airlines have always been nice to our students. You can buy a box at Lowe's that's like this big by this big, and all the chairs will fit into it if you cram it in just right. Excuse me. And then, sorry, had to sneeze. And then they'll check the bags and you can get it. So there's always a way to solve it to get your chair home.
Yeah, but I've done that in a number of cases. But yeah, I was like, and it's always funny. I don't know. I don't know. All the chair classes I've taken have been this way. It's like no matter how long they are, you're always rushing at the very end.
You're always rushing.
Always rushing at the very end. Yeah. I took a 4-week course with Elia Bizzari at Anderson Ranch about doing Curtis Buchanan's Velda chair. And I mean, we turned all the parts. We built shave horses, then we turned all the parts and did all this kind of stuff. And yeah, even at the end, we're rushing to get it done after 4 weeks. They're still rushing. And of course, one guy splits a seat. Typical crap. Yeah.
Drilled a hole in the wrong spot. Classic. Yeah. And actually, Sean, you were kind of saying this earlier, but there's students always make mistakes, right?
Sure.
Get used to it. And what I always tell my students, listen, you are not going to make a mistake that I haven't already made 5 times. So every mistake that you make, I know how to fix because I've done the same thing.
Yep. Experience.
Yeah. But for Galbert's, I will never forget when we went into that class, he goes, so do you want, what kind of legs do you want for your chair? I decided, okay, do we want the double bobbins or do we want the baluster? And I went, I want the double bobbins. Another guy that liked double bobbins. He goes, well, I turned a bunch of balusters, but I'll turn some double bobbins for you too. And within like 30 minutes, he had all the legs turned. It's just like, it's like someday I'll be that fast.
Yeah,
I'm still waiting on that day.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, amazing. But anywho, so last question. What is your go-to finish?
That changes all the time.
Yes.
Right? Of course it does.
From what period of time are you referring to?
Recent.
Recent.
At least.
My favorite finish right now is Odie's oil.
Okay.
Yeah. Great finish, goes on good, all natural, sustainable, goes on very easy. It's not going to fume up the shop, and it looks amazing when it's on. And in fact, it's quite durable. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but we occasionally do, or actually twice a year we build timber frame structures and then basically donate them to nonprofits. So we built one that went as the entrance for a canopy walk, which walks among the trees. But we actually finished this timber frame pavilion in Odie's oil just to see what would happen. Man, and that finish has held up incredibly well over 3 years of Michigan winters.
Wow.
I couldn't be more impressed. Outdoors, a Michigan winters outdoors pavilion. I couldn't be more impressed with how well it held up. No finish is going to hold up excellent outside. I don't care what the salesman says. They're all full of shit, right? Every single one of them. No finish is going to hold up great. And I am incredibly impressed with how well the Odie's oil has held up on this timber frame. And it looks really good. If you're sealing milk paint on a Windsor chair or applying it directly to raw wood, it's pretty good. My all-time favorite finish is shellac. You can't beat it just because I'm so impatient. I hate waiting on finish to dry, and the shellac just dries so fast that it suits me very well.
Understandable. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, that's pretty cool about Odie's oil. I didn't realize it would stand up outside. That's amazing. That's pretty cool.
I didn't know it either. And to be honest with you, I talked to the owner of the company. The owner of the company gave me the stuff for free to try out. And I told him what I was trying to do. He's like, oh, well, we've never tried that, but I think it'd be pretty good. And sure enough, I tried it and it was. So, shout out to Mike.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, people ask me about outdoor finishes. I always say paint.
Yeah, paint, 100%. And paint isn't even going to hold up for.
No, yeah. You'll get a good, you might get 10 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, with that, Luke, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, sbwi.edu is the website to the school. We have information about our year-long college program and our continuing ed courses. You can find my personal website at barnettshares.com. Although I do not sell chairs anymore, I will occasionally make them for very special reasons. Yeah,
Cool.
we're pretty easy to find if you search.
Very cool.
Well, fantastic. Well, Luke, thanks so much for coming on, and it's been a great couple of episodes spending it with you, and I think I've learned a lot. And yeah, I've heard a lot about the Sam Buford Woodworking Institute, but heard a lot about you. But it's been great to have you on the shows.
Yeah, it's been great to be here and the opportunity to share the story, and it's just crazy, that how woodworking changed my life, and I got into chair making, and now because of chairs, I run a college, and I'm the president of a college. Because of Windsor chairs. It's just such a crazy story.
It's mind blowing. Yes,
It is.
And that just about wraps it up for this show. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on the podcatcher of your choice. Just search for the Modern Woodworkers Association. And while you're there, please leave us a review. You can follow us on Instagram at MWA_podcast. And if you'd like to support the podcast, go over to patreon.com/MWA podcast. But the best thing you can do is tell a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way in sharing our discussion.